Hey everybody, welcome back to another video here at homerecordingmadeeasy.com and here on my YouTube channel. And this time out, we're going to talk about a few of my favorite compressors, plugins, and how I use them in a couple of different sources on where I use them and where I find them to be the most beneficial to me. This is part one because I have lots of compressor plugins. I love compressors. They all have their uses. But here's three of my favorites this week. And I want to know what your favorites are. I want you to leave comments below after this video. So we're going to take a look at these three compressors quickly and we're going to listen to them on a couple different sources. And I'm going to explain to you why I use them on the sources that I do. But before we get to that, if you like what you see in this video, please consider subscribing. Also, if this is your first time here, head out to homerecordingmadeeasy.com. I want to give you a free mixing course worth $50. It's my gift to you just for visiting homerecordingmadeeasy.com. And if you stick around to the end of the video, I'm going to give you something else absolutely free. So stick around. So let's jump on in here to Studio One. Here's three compressors we're going to talk about this week. They're pretty different from each other. We're going to talk about the CLA 76, the blue stripe. We're going to talk about the Abbey Roads by Waves here, the RS124. This is a wonderful, wonderful plugin. I love this thing. And then we're also going to take a look at the old tried and true FG Gray by Slate Digital. So let's close these for a second. Let's start with the CLA 76 blue stripe. So what I like about, and again, it doesn't really matter so much if it's the Waves version, the Universal Audio version, the Overloud version. There's a lot of companies that make an 1176. There's not too many of them that make the actual blue stripe, though. The blue stripe, I believe, Universal Audios and Waves are probably the only two that I know of. I'm sure there's others. I might even have a couple others, but those are the two that I gravitate towards the most. The reason why I'm showing you guys the Waves one is because unless you have a Universal Audio hardware, you won't be able to use the Universal Audio version. Plus, what I like about the Waves one, it's really two plugins in one. It's the Bluey, the blue stripe, and if you click this black button, it's the black face, which is totally different tone, and we'll demonstrate that in a second. Now, I have full-blown reviews on how to use all these plugins we're going to see today already on the YouTube channel. You can check about that. This isn't so much a review on every feature. I just want to talk to you about why I like them and why I think they're essential to have in your plugin collection. So I think it's essential that you have an 1176, and I think it's a good idea to have a blue stripe because it sounds way different than the black one, and we'll see that in a second. So where do I like to use these? I love to use these on vocals. I love to use these on acoustic guitars. Let me demonstrate something here on acoustic guitar. We're going to keep the copyright gods away from YouTube. We're not going to play any vocals in this particular video. But here's an acoustic guitar part here. Let's listen to this here and let me demonstrate how this sounds on an acoustic. Let me just get the loop section here. Here we go. So on an acoustic guitar like this, I like to do like a 4-to-1 ratio, heavy strummed guitar, do kind of a quick release or fast attack, slow, faster attack here, fast release. Level match it here. That's before. So what I love about the blue stripe on this particular plugin, and the same thing with the Universal Audio version, it tends to be a little bit more open in the upper mids. I feel it's not as warm sounding as, say, the blackface, which we'll look at in a second. What I also love about this is you can push this thing kind of hard and it never really seems overly compressed. It just sounds nice. It really brings out the sparkle in acoustic guitars. And you can play with the attack time. Okay, now if we go over to the black one, you can see it reacts a little bit differently with the same settings. It's just a different. This has a slower attack to it. So the blue stripe just opens up a little bit more compared to the black, and that's great when you're listening to it in the context of a mix. And this is an unmixed song, and I do this for a reason. There's no plugins anywhere really. I just do this so we could hear the actual plugin and how it's affecting the audio. But if you kind of lay this in kind of an unmixed song, that's before. Okay, so that's on the acoustic, and it helps it cut through a little bit more. It gets a little bit brighter. The other place I like to use the blue stripe a lot if I need to is on a snare. Snare is another area where I'll use an 1176. So what the 1176 tends to do on a snare is it tends to elongate the sustain a little bit, gives it a little bit more crack. A FET style compressor like this is great on real heavy transient material, like a heavily strummed acoustic, like a snare drum, things like that. It grabs that peak, but it doesn't grab it too much. It still leaves a lot of punch. So you could hear how it helps sustain the drum a little bit. And we're compressing it quite a bit. It's before. After. Okay, now if we go to the black, get a little bit warmer. A little bit more crack. So this is a great plugin to have by Waves here because you have the two options of the blue and the black, but I just like to have a blue stripe. And I also use the blue stripe a lot on lead vocals. Lead vocals where I need something just to be a little bit brighter. And if I don't want to use an EQ to kind of get a little bit of brightness there, the upper mids, and I want to get those sibilants, I'll use an 1176 blue stripe, and that works a lot. So this is one of my favorites. Love the 1176, most people do, and I love the blue stripe, and I love the CLA 76. That's the first one. The second compressor that I want to show you is let's do the bass one now. Let's look at the Abbey Road's Altec RS124. This is a wonderful plugin. Beautiful on bass, beautiful on piano. This has got that sound of the 60s. It's tubes based. It's going to really mellow things out. I really love it on bass. Here's bass guitar. Here's just a bass amp. And again, we have our recovery time here from fast to slow release. Our input will how much compression we want. And what I love about this is you can really get, on a bass, 10, 15 dB of compression, and it doesn't sound overly smashed. We can turn down and level match it a little bit. They also have this unit type, the cutter in the studio. So the studio unit is based on the original tubes from the unit from Abbey Road Studios. The cutter version is on a later version that has the 6AL5 tubes in it. So really they were just modeled on two different units with two different types of tubes. A little bit mellower sounding on the studio, I feel. A little bit more aggressive. It's before. Really rounds out the bottom end really nice. And again, we're compressing almost 15 dB. They also have this thing called the superfuse. And what the superfuse is going to do is it actually disables the recovery. You can see as I click on the superfuse button and the light lights up, watch the recovery chicken head knob there. It disables it. It actually lines up the attack and the release to the same settings. And really what that's going to do when you're compressing it kind of heavy, it's going to give you a little bit more grit. So listen to what happens when I turn it on. It's a little bit more, which I like. Gets a little louder. You can turn it down a little. Before. before the compressor, after. So you can level match it by turning it down. By using the cutter and by using the superfuse, this is great in a mix when you just want to get it, if it's really fat and warm and you want to get it to, again, to cut through a little bit more, this will help cut through a little bit more because of these two features. Sounds a little bit more gritty. So again, in the context of a mix, I'll turn down the bass DI. That wonderful sound. Love this on bass. Also love this on piano. This is one of my go-tos on piano. Where's our piano? Right here. So if I solo up our piano, this is a stereo instance of this because it's on a stereo track. Before, after, and if I go to the cutter, really brings out the sparkle really nice. Put on the superfuse. Really beautiful, just a beautiful sounding compressor. Again, way different than anything else, you know, that's really out there. Again, these Abbey Road collection stuff from way back in the early to mid 60s. These are beautiful, beautiful components. And what's unique about these kinds of plugins is these were one-offs. These weren't like in every single studio in the world. They weren't mass produced. They were built by the EMI engineers for Abbey Road, and they were custom to them. So to be able to have that in our plugin collections are pretty cool. So this is another one that I really, really like. If you want that warm, tubey sound from the 60s, this is a great, great compressor. Another one of my favorites. Way different than the 1176, completely different design. The last thing I want to show you for this particular video is I want to show you my good old tried and true, the FG bus compressor by Slate Digital. This is the emulation of the VCA SSL, the FG Gray. Again, this thing sounds, I use this on drum buses all the time. I've been using them on drum buses for a long time. I've also used them on master buses. Here's our drums unmixed. Again, something like a 2-to-1 ratio and a fast release and a slow attack. Just hitting a couple of dB. It's before. It really brings out some of the room. You can push it a little. Get a little makeup gain. Just got that classic SSL thing. And so this has a mix knob where you can do heavy compression and dial it in with parallel compression. It also has a high pass filter if you don't want the low end to trigger your compressor. You can kind of pop this up around 50, 60 hertz. You can see the compression gets less. And if you want to compress more at the top end, it's before, after. Just adds a lot of nice color. Now this is kind of a mellow, jazzy kind of a drum sound on like a heavy rock track. This adds just a wonderful tone. I use it a lot on heavy rock, big drums, big rockin' drum kits. This is great. I've been using this for years. I love it. It's one of my favorite SSL emulations. So those are three very different sounding plugins that I use quite often. And again, the thing about compressors and the way I like to think about compressors is I think about them much more than just the way we control dynamics. They all control dynamics. What I really think about them And the way I think about compression is I consider them tone boxes or colors. You may have heard other engineers say that in the past, where they all compress, but depending on the design of the circuits and the way the compressors are designed and the way they react to audio, and whether it's tubes or FET style or VCA or whatever, they're going to have a different EQ sonic characteristic. And what's great about having different tonal EQ sound characteristics for these different types of compressors, you can really get some really great unique sounds to change the sound and also control dynamics at the same time. So compression is something wonderful. When you start to learn about compression more than just controlling dynamics, it really opens up a world of possibilities for you. And I have a lot of training on my website that talks about that stuff. We'll talk about that in a second. So those are my three, in part one, three of my, I wouldn't say the three favorites I have of all time, but these are definitely three of my favorite ones. I have a lot of favorite compressors I use, and I thought I would share these with you today. And I think it's essential that you have this kind of variety in your plugin collection, which goes way beyond just having your stock plugin that came with your DAW. And the wonderful thing about these is they're all very super affordable. You don't need any additional hardware to use them, and you can use these on a variety of things and get some really great tone. So I want to thank you so much for joining me for this video about my favorite compressors part one. Stay tuned for part two. I'm going to show you a whole bunch of compressors in the next few videos so you can really get a feel for what compression can really do for you. Now, like I said, I want to thank you for watching the whole video. I want to give you another free gift. So you're already going to go out to Home Recording Made Easy and get your free mixing course, right? You're going to take that course if you like my style of teaching and you want to learn more about mixing, recording, EQ, compression, and mastering, and you want to check out one of the paid training courses. I want to give you a 25% discount. I want to give you a coupon code. The coupon code is YouTube25. Put that in at checkout. It'll take 25% off any one of my training courses. And because we're talking about compression here, I have a course that you'll really love where I really dive down deep in a very non-technical way to help you understand the differences between the compressors, what compressor types are, what they're most commonly used for, how to use them, and most importantly, how to hear compression and what to listen for. Take my course, Compression Made Easy. We're going to look at some of these plugins and many, many more. And by the time you're done with that course, if you were ever confused about compression in the past, you will be no longer, and you will have what I call the compression aha moment. What's the aha moment? That's when you first really tune your ears to hearing compression for the first time and you understand what to listen for. You understand the tonal differences between some of these plugins, and it's going to open up a world of possibilities that you never thought possible when you're mixing music. Aha, that's the aha moment. Make sure you check that out at homerecordingmadeeasy.com. Use that coupon code. Everything will be in the description box below. Let me know below what are your favorite compressors and what are some of your favorite uses and what do you use them on. I'd love to know what you think. Leave some comments below. Till the next video, I've been Dave with homerecordingmadeeasy.com. Thank you so much for joining me, and I will see you next time. Take care, everybody.